Every morning you open your eyes and something extraordinary happens. Before your feet touch the floor, before a single thought fully forms, your brain has already assembled a character. It builds a name, a history, a personality, a voice that feels like yours. It does this so seamlessly that you never think to question it. You assume you woke up as the same person who fell asleep, the same mind, the same self. One continuous, unified you. But what if that feeling, that absolute certainty that you are one person, is the most sophisticated illusion your brain has ever produced? You have felt this before. You're standing in your kitchen deciding what to eat, and something inside you wants the salad, while something else is already reaching for the phone to order pizza. You tell yourself to stay disciplined, and another voice whispers, "Why bother?" You pick up your phone to text someone you know you should not text, and halfway through typing, something stops your thumb. It feels like a debate, because it is one. But here is the part no one asks. If you are one person, one unified self, with one set of desires, then who exactly is arguing with whom? That tension you feel is not confusion. It is not weakness. It may be something far stranger. Structurally different systems inside your brain, competing for control of the same body. Here is what neuroscience, psychology, and philosophy are all beginning to agree on. The singular self, the one you call I, may not exist. Not the way you think it does. Your brain does not run one operating system. It runs several, sometimes cooperating, sometimes in open conflict, each one generating a different version of you. And this is not a metaphor. Over the next few minutes, we're going to walk through split brain experiments, the brain's own narrator module, and a question that changes everything. If you are not oneself, then who has been making your decisions? In the 1960s, neuroscientists Roger Sperry and Michael Gazzaniga did something no one had fully prepared for. They studied patients whose corpus callosum, the thick bundle of fibers connecting the brain's two hemispheres, had been surgically severed to treat severe epilepsy. The seizures stopped, but something else started. Each hemisphere began behaving as though it were its own independent mind. One patient's left hand would reach for a shirt while the right hand pulled it back and grabbed a different one. Not clumsily, deliberately, as if two people shared the same body and disagreed about what to wear. This was not a metaphor for internal conflict. This was two separate centers of intention, operating inside one skull. For the first time, science had direct evidence that a single brain could house more than one self. One experiment made this even more unsettling. Gazzaniga showed a split-brain patient two different images, a chicken claw to the left hemisphere and a snowy scene to the right. When asked to point to related objects, the right hand chose a chicken. The left hand chose a shovel. Perfectly logical, each hemisphere responding to what it saw. But then came the question, why did you pick those? The left hemisphere, the only side that can speak, did not say, "I don't know." It did not hesitate. It said, "The chicken goes with the chicken claw, and you need a shovel to clean out the chicken shed." A seamless, confident, entirely fabricated explanation. The brain did not admit confusion. It invented a story instead. It chose coherence over truth, and it did so without flinching. Gazzaniga gave this phenomenon a name. He called it the left brain interpreter, a module in the left hemisphere whose entire function is to take the messy, fragmented, often contradictory outputs of your brain and weave them into a story that feels coherent. It does not report what actually happened inside your mind. It edits what happened. It smooths the edges, fills the gaps, and delivers a version of events you can accept. It is not a journalist. It is a spin doctor. And it is running inside your head right now. Every time you say, "I chose this because," every time you explain a gut feeling with a confident reason, every time you look back on a decision and construct a tidy narrative, that may not be the truth. That may be the interpreter doing what it was built to do, giving you a story you can live with. The split-brain experiments revealed the fracture, but one theorist had already imagined the full architecture. In 1986, Marvin Minsky, cognitive scientist, AI pioneer, and one of the sharpest minds ever to work at MIT, proposed something radical. He called it the Society of Mind. His argument was that the mind is not one thing. It is a vast society of tiny, mindless agents, each one handling a narrow task. One recognizes faces, another processes fear, another craves sugar, another plans tomorrow morning. None of these agents is you. None of them is conscious. But together, through chaotic interaction, they produce something that feels like a unified self. Think of a city. No single mayor decides when every light turns green, when every shop opens, when every argument begins. Millions of small actors do their own thing, and somehow the city runs. Your mind works the same way.
Minsky imagined it as theory. Modern neuroscience has mapped it as fact. Your brain contains distinct large-scale networks, each one responsible for a fundamentally different mode of being. The default mode network activates when you daydream, reflect on your past, or think about who you are. The salience network fires when something feels urgent or threatening. It decides what matters right now. The executive control network handles planning, logic, and deliberate reasoning. Here is what makes this extraordinary. These networks do not politely take turns, they compete. When the default mode network is active, the executive network often goes quiet. When the salience network flares, it can override both. You do not gently shift between modes. One network suppresses another and takes the wheel. This means the version of you carefully building a budget spreadsheet is, in a measurable neurological sense, not the same version of you lying awake at 3 in the morning replaying something embarrassing you said 6 years ago. Same brain, same skull, different self at the controls. This rotation of selves is not random. It follows a clock. Your brain cycles through shifts in alertness, processing style, and hormonal balance roughly every 90 to 120 minutes. These are called ultradian rhythms, and they operate beneath your awareness entirely. During one phase, you are sharp, focused, risk-tolerant. During another, you are cautious, reflective, emotionally soft. Your cognitive style literally changes on a biological schedule you cannot feel. This means the version of you that made a confident promise at 10 in the morning is neurochemically not the same version being asked to keep it at 11 at night. You did not lose motivation. You did not become lazy. A different edition of you showed up, and it never agreed to anything. Now go deeper, because the brain is not just switching between selves, it is actively generating them. Under a framework known as predictive processing, your brain does not sit passively waiting for reality to arrive. It runs ahead. It builds predictions, multiple simultaneous models of what is about to happen and who you are in relation to it. Am I safe or am I in danger? Am I the confident version of me walking into this room or the anxious one? Am I someone who speaks up here or someone who stays quiet? These are not idle thoughts. They are competing hypotheses, running in parallel, each one a slightly different draft of you. Your brain evaluates incoming sensory data and selects a winner. The model that best fits the evidence gets promoted to consciousness. The rest are silenced. What you experience as your identity in any given moment is simply whichever simulation survived the last update cycle. You are not one person thinking one stream of thought. You are multiple drafts of a person being written at once, and only one gets published at a time. Psychologist Bruce Hood put it plainly. The self, he argued, is not an entity. It is a story. In his book, The Self-Illusion, Hood laid out a case that has only grown stronger since. Your brain takes fragments, scattered memories, sensory input, social feedback, expectations, and weaves them into a narrative that feels unified. That feels like a person. But there is no central headquarters inside the brain where you sit and observe the show. No control room, no single author. It is more like a Wikipedia page being edited in real time by anonymous contributors. The article reads as though one mind wrote it, but no one did. And this is not a fringe position. It is not speculative philosophy or poetic exaggeration. It is increasingly the mainstream understanding in neuroscience. The self is not the thing doing the thinking. It is the story the thinking tells. So if the self is an illusion, why does it feel so absolutely real? Because it had to. Evolution does not reward self-knowledge. It rewards speed. An organism standing in front of a predator cannot afford to pause and wonder which internal self should respond. It needs one voice, one command, one unified impulse. Now, the feeling of being a single person is not a reflection of your brain's true architecture. It is a biological shortcut. a compression designed to keep you alive. Think of your computer's desktop. You see clean icons, tidy folders, a simple interface. But beneath it are millions of lines of code, competing processes, background conflicts you will never see. The desktop is not the truth of the machine. It is a simplified surface, designed to be usable. Consciousness works the same way. What you experience as a unified self is the interface. The real processing, fragmented, parallel, competitive, is hidden underneath. Evolution did not build you to understand yourself. It built you to survive long enough to reproduce. The illusion of oneself was the most efficient way to do that. If the unified self is a constructed interface, then there should be moments when the construction fails. And there are. In dissociative disorders, parts of the self fracture and begin operating independently, sometimes forming distinct identities, each with their own memories, their own emotional tone, entirely unaware of the others. The system splits, and the illusion of one person falls apart. Then there are dreams. In a dream, you can be the actor, the observer, and the scriptwriter of a scene that makes no logical sense. You watch yourself from outside your own body. You are chased by something you also invented. Multiple self-models are running at once, but the usual editorial control, the narrator, has gone offline. And then there is psychedelic ego dissolution. Research from Imperial College London has shown that psilocybin directly disrupts the default mode network, the very system that maintains your sense of being a self. When it goes quiet, users report something profound. Not confusion, not emptiness, just awareness, without a center. No I, no narrator, no story. Just open, unfiltered experience. And the question that lingers afterward is difficult to dismiss. What if that state is not a distortion of reality? What if it is closer to what the brain actually is, before the illusion boots up? Neuroscience identified the fracture, philosophy described the illusion, and now therapy is learning how to work with it. Richard Schwartz, a family therapist, developed a model that has become one of the fastest-growing frameworks in modern psychology. He called it internal family systems. The premise is deceptively simple. Your mind is not one voice. It is a family of distinct parts. Protectors who guard you from pain, exiles who carry old wounds, managers who try to keep everything under control, firefighters who react when the system is overwhelmed. Each part has its own memories, its own fears, its own agenda. And the goal of therapy is not to silence them, not to merge them into one. It is to get them to communicate. Schwartz argues that mental health was never about becoming a single unified self. It is about learning to lead your internal family with awareness and compassion. Science fractured the self. Therapy is now learning how to chair the meeting. This reframes something you have probably struggled with your entire life. Self-sabotage. You set a goal. You want it. You know exactly what to do. And then some part of you pulls the emergency brake. You procrastinate. You stay in a relationship that is clearly wrong. You watch yourself make the worst choice and wonder what is wrong with you. If you were one unified self acting in your own interest, this behavior makes no sense. But if you are a coalition, a collection of parts with different agendas, it makes perfect sense. One part of you wants growth. Another part learned long ago, maybe in childhood, that growth leads to exposure, and exposure leads to pain. So it protects you the only way it knows how, by keeping you stuck. You are not broken. You are a system with members who disagree. The conflict is not a flaw. It is the architecture. Now follow this to its most uncomfortable conclusion. If you are not one self but many competing processes, then what happens to free will? When you decide to go to the gym, who decided? Was it you, or was it the executive network momentarily overpowering the comfort-seeking limbic system? And if so, is that a choice, or just one neural coalition winning a temporary power struggle? Philosopher Daniel Dennett proposed what he called the multiple drafts model of consciousness. His argument was that there is no single moment where a decision is made, no flash of will, no commanding voice. Instead, there is a continuous competition among parallel processes, and whichever one gains enough momentum gets retroactively labeled as my choice. The decision does not happen and then get noticed. The noticing is what creates the feeling of a decision. The implication is staggering. You may never have made a single choice the way you think you have. What you call free will might be the story the winning coalition tells after the war is already over. 2,500 years before anyone opened a skull or ran a brain scan, a monk sitting under a tree arrived at the same conclusion. The Buddhist concept of anatta, non-self, teaches that there is no fixed, permanent self, no unchanging core behind the eyes. The Buddha argued that clinging to the illusion of a singular eye is not just a misunderstanding, it is the root of suffering itself. For centuries, this was treated as spiritual philosophy, abstract, unprovable. But now brain imaging, split brain research, and predictive processing models are confirming the structure of that ancient claim. There is no central self. There is only process. Sometimes the oldest ideas and the newest science do not contradict each other. Sometimes they arrive, centuries apart, at the exact same destination. Sit with this for a moment. If there is no real unified you, then what are you? The question can feel like the ground disappearing beneath your feet. If there is no fixed self, no permanent core, then what is left? But stay here, because the terror folds into something else if you let it. If you are not one fixed self, then you are not your worst moment. You are not your anxiety. You are not your shame. You are not the version of you that failed, or quit, or said the wrong thing at the wrong time. Those were parts. They were not the whole. You are not any single frame. You are the space in which all these versions arise, play their role, and pass. And that space does not need to be defended or perfected. It just needs to be noticed. The absence of a fixed self is not emptiness. It is freedom. You are not a statue, solid, permanent, and brittle. You are a river, always moving, always changing, never the same water twice, and yet, unmistakably, still a river. So if you are not one self, the question is not who am I? That question assumes a single answer exists. The better question, the more honest and more useful one, is which version of me do I want to lead right now? Because if your brain is a committee, you can learn to notice which member has the microphone. Mindfulness is not mysticism. Meditation is not escape. Therapy is not repair. They are all, at their core, the same practice. Learning to observe your internal parliament and consciously choosing which voice gets the floor. You do not need to find your true self. There is no true self hiding behind the noise, waiting to be uncovered. What you can do is something more powerful. You can become a better moderator, not one voice ruling all the others, but a quiet awareness that notices, listens, and chooses which version of you this moment actually needs. Now zoom out, because this does not end with you. Every person you have ever met, your partner, your parent, your closest friend, the person who hurt you most, is also not one person. They are also a committee, a society of competing drafts, a collection of parts that do not always agree. The arguments you have with other people are not really between two selves. They are between two coalitions, each one sending a representative to the surface while the rest remain hidden. And compassion, real compassion, might begin right there, with understanding that the person who wounded you was not acting from their whole self. They were being driven by a part of themselves they may not even know exists. Just like you have been. Just like you will be again. This is not a reason to excuse harm. It is a reason to see more clearly, to hold others and yourself with a little more grace. Because now you know, you are not one person. You never were. And the strangest part, the part that may take years to fully settle, is that this might be the most freeing thing you will ever hear.